Hello, in this video we're going to look at a little feature I've recently developed which will allow me to toggle my selected target based on the distance from my character, and also I'm adding a little filter to make sure that they're visible on the screen. So I do this on my tab click, but you can modify that to whatever button you'd like. So as usual, all of the steps to repeat this can be found on this blog post, and what I'll do is I'll just quickly give a demonstration of how it works. So as you can see, I've got multiple targets on the screen, and if I click tab, it will just go through the nearest one to my character, and it will go to the next one, and it will ultimately loop and go back to my character. So again, if I just click tab, tab again, and you can see it's just looping through all of the targets. If I then just turn my screen where I'm only seeing if I just go a bit more, these two targets, it will only iterate through those two. So that's another little filter we can add. So that's what we're going to go through. So let's have a look at the implementation. Okay, so the first thing that we'll want to do is create the new input action for the toggling for the next target. So I just called mine input action next target. So to create that, simply go to input, and there you can see the input action. You'll also need this input mapping context. I've actually just reused one that I already had. So when you created the input action, you don't actually need to modify anything inside it. So the default one is good. And inside the this mapping table, what you need to do is add a new entry. So you can just click this plus button. So there you can see I've added the IA next target. And in order to map it to a particular button, you just click this keyboard icon, and in my case I mapped it to my tab button. So once that's ready, what you want to do is then register it inside your player controller. So to register those is quite simple. So you can see I've done a registering of a mapping context over here. So you've got this enhanced input local player system. So if you just So that's how you're able to get that. Just simply type it up. It's a bit long, but that's how you get it. And what you want to do is then add the mapping context. So this is actually for a different one, but simply navigate to the action bar actions, for example, right? So simply select that one, and that will register it, right? And then simply call this within your event begin play. And once you've done that, you'll be able to then execute it like so. So IA next target, this will become available, and you want to activate it when it's started. So this is the actual implementation for this function. Okay, so the first function that we call here, and perhaps the most important one, is to get all actors ordered. So this function will actually return me an array, an ordered array, where the first item is going to be my actual player, followed by the actors which are then most closest to my player. All right, so the first function that I call here is to get all actors of class. So I get all actors of actor base blueprint. So this actor base blueprint is used by my monsters and my players. So it's the common parent class for those, and that's how I'm able to effectively find my players, the proxies, and the monsters. If, for example, you only want to search for monsters, you would select the monster blueprint here. Next, I iterate, and I basically filter all of the ones which are on screen. So for that, I use this function project world to screen. So I basically need to provide a location of my actor, and it uses my player controller to evaluate whether that location is visible on my screen. So it simply returns me this Boolean. Now there is a bit of a threshold, so that where the target is almost visible, it will actually still give me true here. So I consider that a feature rather than a bug, but if you want to be very precise, you will use this screen position instead, and make sure that these X and Y coordinates are both positive, right? So that's how you can make sure that it's definitely visible on the screen, because sometimes it could be slightly off screen, but it will still give you a true Boolean here. So I think that's fine for my purposes. Okay, so what we want to do next is add all of these values which are present on my screen onto a map. Now, the reason I do this is because the arrays don't have a native way to sort them in Blueprint. So for example, I just type sort here, I don't have a way to sort this array of actors, right? I can do that to an array of floats, but I can't do that on these objects, and that's a bit of a limitation within blueprints. So I suspect you should be able to come up with something in C++. But having said that, if you're having to create your own sort mechanism, it might not be very efficient, right? So for example, this sort float array, I suspect it should be a quick sort. So for example, the computational complexity of that should be n log n. Whereas if you're going to do this manually, it's probably going to be something like n squared, right? So this should actually be a more performant way. In other languages, like for example Java, you have a really basic sort mechanism which will allow you to add a predicate in, and we can do this natively using the original array, but that's just not the case here. Right, so because of that, what I do is add this into a map, and I use the key as the distance to my player, right? So you can see I've got my get player pawn and get the distance to where I pass the reference of the actor here, and then that becomes the key into the map. So bear in mind, I will always have at least one item in here, which is going to be the player itself, and the distance of the player will obviously be zero, right? So it will always be the first element in that array. Okay, and then after I've added that to the map, what I want to do is then get the keys of that map, which will refer to all of the distances, and I simply sort that, right? So once I've sorted the keys, I can simply iterate over them and take the items from that map and create the new array, which is going to be the sorted array of all of these elements, of all of these actors, right? And you can see that that's how we've returned it. Okay, now we can go back. So you can see after we've gotten ourselves this sorted array, what we want to do is we want to first check, do we have a currently selected target? Because if we don't have one, we'll go to this false, and we simply select the 0th element. So that's what you can see here. We've got the ordered actors, and we simply select the 0th element, which will always be present. It will be our player actor. So this part is slightly out of scope, but it's really quite simple. My actions component, you can see actions component has a reference to the current selected target. So that's the actor base BP reference. And this is where I simply track it, right? And you can see in the flow that when I do have one available, I want to find the index of my currently selected target. So you can see ordered actors, I want to find it. And if it's present there, I want to simply add 1 to the element array index. But I also use this mod function to make it a looping index, right? Because if it's the last element, I want it to loop back to 0. And that's what this accomplishes, and then that's how I get the relevant actor from the ordered actors. And again, I just get my actions component to select this new target. So it might look a bit confusing, but this function is really quite simple. I think if I just go back here, right at the end, this is it. Current index +1 mod array length will give you this looping index. So as I mentioned, all of these steps can be found on this post, so check that out if you want to go through it. And I think that's it for this video. So thanks and see you next time. Bye.